Okay, we're good. You good? Yeah.
Hi, welcome everyone to Aerospace Initiative's Aero Internship Panel. This is our annual panel where we feature students who've interned in various aerospace companies. This year we have a really great lineup, so hope you enjoy the panel. Who's here for the first CSI event? If you need to. Okay, welcome to CSI. So we meet every Friday, 4 to 6. We have a variety of engineering design missions which you can participate in. So we meet in 233 every Friday, 4 to 6. So feel free to stop by. So Jake will be moderating. So
Okay, all right. Hi, I'm Jake. I'm the moderator for this internship panel. Thank you everyone for coming. We're hoping this will last for how long? How long is this?
I think so. We'll do like 20 to 30 minutes questions and Q&A.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So let's get started. So why don't we just go down the line here and just introduce everyone. We'll start with Leon.
Hey everyone, I'm Leon. I'm actually the co-president of CSI. So if some of you are not part of CSI, but you're here for the event, that's great. But I really highly encourage. I'm gonna make our plug, and I'm gonna say like you should really join CSI, especially if you're interested in like aerospace and you want to work like your career. You want to be in aerospace. Like you should join CSI. So that's my plug. But anyway, I'm Leon. I'm a junior mechanical engineer, and I intern at JPL.
I'm Julia. I'm a senior in electrical engineering, and I intern at Lockheed Martin.
I'm Dylan. I'm a sophomore mechanical, and I interned at Final Frontier Design.
I'm Sarah. I'm a senior electrical engineer, and I interned at Boeing.
I'm Elon. I am a senior in mechanical engineering and physics, and I did a fellowship at Los Alamos National Lab.
And I'm Rebecca, and I'm a senior in electrical engineering, and I was an intern at Northrop Grumman.
Julia was a co-founder of CSI.
Okay, great. So now that we're introduced, let's just again go down the line and talk just a little bit about what we did at each of our internships, because we have a very diverse background here. We have academia, we have corporate, we have startups. Just briefly explain what your responsibilities were, maybe something about the project that you participated in, if it's not under NDA or ITAR. Sorry to be on again.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, NASA JPL is a Caltech-run facility that basically has NASA's like stamp of approval on it. It's kind of an interesting relationship, but basically the name is kind of a misnomer. Like it had its roots in rocketry and propulsion, but now it's more of a premier center for space exploration robotics. So this year, I was part of JPL's Innovations to Flight team, and basically we're a tightly knit group of interns who worked on novel flight projects under a short period of time. So we were trying to basically, beat the notion that flight projects need to take a lot of time, they need to take a lot of money and testing. We're just a group of interns who are doing really radical flight projects. And my project that I worked on specifically was a high altitude balloon, project. And the whole goal of it was to provide a highly accessible and very modular, cheap, easy to use high altitude testing platform. And we did that by flying multiple high altitude balloon launches. And if you guys don't know what a high altitude balloon is, it's basically like a weather balloon that goes really high and it carries cool scientific payloads.
So Lockheed Martin does a lot of stuff. You may know it as a defense company, but I worked on their space systems division. So I was working on satellite stuff. And the current paradigm for satellites is you sort of launch something and then it beams down information to Earth. But I was on this research team that was trying to make our satellites really smart and intelligent, whereas they could process that data on board before beaming it back down to Earth.
So unlike Leon and Julia, I worked at kind of smaller companies. It's kind of a startup. So Final Frontier Design builds spacesuits, and they're located in Brooklyn. So there's only about 7 or 8 actually employees. So it's a very small company, and their primary customer is NASA. They're pretty much their only customer is NASA. So basically, I worked on the spacesuits. Specifically, my role was on the ventilation system. So it was kind of broken when I got there, and I had to kind of do some modeling and CFD simulations to fix it up.
So I was working with Boeing Research and Technology. Boeing splits up into space and defense, commercial, and they have a research and technology division. I was working with communications and sensing engineers on some phased array antennas, which is great. Instead of having one antenna, you have a plane of antennas. They're all out of phase, so you can steer the beam that comes out without any moving parts.
That's the advantage. They use them for radar communications, and I hope with some trade studies related to that.
So you guys might know about Los Alamos because it was the place that developed the atomic bomb, but really it does a whole lot more than that. And it's kind of the only national laboratory that has a little bit of every single research application you can think of. So my specific program, which had 21 of us, was focused on structural health monitoring. And my specific research project was about embedding fiber optic sensors into 3D printed parts. And what I did for that was I ran abacus models and I tried to develop an FEA simulation that would match the experimental data. And really a lot of that was about figuring out how to model 3D printed parts, the internal composite structure of that.
So Northrop Grumman is also a big aerospace defense company, sort of similar to Lockheed Martin. And they do space stuff as well as airplane stuff. And I worked on the airplane side this summer. And the team that I worked with in particular was focusing on the maintenance of stealthy airplanes, which are airplanes that have certain characteristics that make them difficult to pick up on radar. So it has to do with the shape of the airplane and also the materials that they put on the airplane. So if an airplane that's already built undergoes any sort of damage, like it hits a bird while it's flying or something, then there's a lot of interest in making sure that there's no damage to the materials or to like the general profile of the airplane. So my team worked on building handheld tools that airplane mechanics could use to quickly test and see whether the electrical properties of the materials on the plane in a certain place were intact.
Okay, great. Yeah, so again, very diverse experiences and very diverse projects here. So one of the major reasons for having this panel in the first place is so that other students, such as this audience and people watching the video, can also apply to these positions and figure out what kind of opportunities are available. So one of the last down the line questions, but we can again go over how you got your position, like whether it be a network connection or an application process. Just a quick overview of what that process was like. Yeah,
So for JPL, if you're interested in applying, if you just search JPL internship, you'll go to this kind of generic JPL website that's like, oh, apply here, like put your resume in. And that's a fucking black hole. Like, don't do that. I mean, you can. It's if you're like stellar, like if you're a really great student and like you've done all these projects, I'm sure you might you probably will get selected. But there's so many like filters and so much bullshit that goes through like that generic application. I really wouldn't recommend it. And instead, I encourage you to search on Google JPL announcements of opportunity. And if you search that, that comes up with Caltech's page, which lists basically all these different announcements of opportunity, which are basically all these mentors at JPL. They have these projects and they want to hire interns. And so they create these announcements of opportunity, and usually you can join JPL through this method by contacting, you can go to the announcements of opportunity, read their description, see what interests you, and once you have gotten like a list, if you're really desperate, you can apply for all of them. But I encourage you to go through and like see what you're interested in, and then you'll see like the mentor's name, and then that's like your cue to really like stalk that person. And like try to email them, call them. I mean, don't be too clingy. Just like send them like a nice short email saying you're interested, what your background is, your resume, and then you can go from there. And usually, if the mentor likes you, he'll see your resume, he'll ask you for a phone interview, and if you pass that, usually you'll go through Caltech's CERT program, which is the summer research program basically, and that's how they get the money to hire you. And that's basically what I recommend for getting to JPL.
So you're applying to individual projects and individual mentors, individual.
That's right. Yeah. So like I said, don't go through the generic application. Like look through these AOs, announcements of opportunities, and like apply or contact the mentors whose project best aligns with your interests.
Yeah, on the flip side, I just submitted my resume, waited like 3 months in the black hole, got a call. Thought I bombed, but I guess I didn't bomb, and I got an offer.
Real quick. So for the Boeing one,
Lucky.
sorry.
It's okay, they're all.
Way too many, way too many companies. So for Lockheed, was it like just a general application
Yeah,
through
that
their
was pretty
website,
typical.
or?
Yeah, general application through their website. All the interns. So I was in San Diego, California, which is the Silicon Valley area, and all the interns there were basically either they knew someone or they applied through the website.
Yeah, so Final Frontier Design, no kind of like application system like JPL or Lockheed. So actually a senior member of CSI who graduated last year, Tamash, he interned there the year before I did, the summer before I did. And he actually set up like a tour for a bunch of CSI members to go down to Brooklyn to Final Frontier Design to like see what it was all about. So I actually got to see the workshop that way. And then just sent Ted, the founder, an email afterwards and just went from there. Interview, like 2 interviews, and then ultimately got selected a month later. So.
For Boeing, you're lucky to go to Columbia because you get access to this early or engineering accelerated hiring initiative. So Boeing reps come to campus once a year, once a semester, and interview students, and you have to try to get that interview because once you talk to a person, they'll put you in a system, and it's kind of like it's a matching system, like what you get if you apply to med school. Like you talk to engineers, and they talk to you, and then everyone writes each other. So once you've interviewed on campus, which like I also applied to Boeing through the black hole method, like on the website as a sophomore, and didn't hear back. I talked to someone in person the next year. I had more experience, but I think the difference is that I talked to someone, so you should really try to do this. And yeah, once you're in the system, you're in it forever. Like they'll put you on an educational leave of absence after the internship, and you can just stay in touch with with the people you met on your team, and you get access to like see opportunities that you can't see from the outside. Yeah, so just look out for the EHI is the acronym. I think they already came to campus this semester, but that's your way for sure.
So are they coming again next semester?
Yeah, they. I don't know if they come in the spring because I interviewed in the fall and I talked to people who interviewed this fall. But it's called the Engineering Accelerated Hiring Initiative, and they come to Columbia every year, to my knowledge. So you want to talk to a person.
They usually come in the fall only. Like they close out most of the hiring in the fall.
So clearly you're all out of luck. Yeah, my application actually went through the school. I got an email from Emily and McCormick, and I applied specifically to the program that I was doing, which was the Los Alamos Dynamic Summer School. And half of it was about taking classes and learning all these different aspects of modal analysis, or just everything, aerospace and structural health monitoring and other things like that. But I just applied straight through the specific application for that, and I got it through the school. So not much. There wasn't like a super lengthy interview process. It really came down to I think that's actually a question, so I'll save that for after.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I got my internship through the Society of Women Engineers National Conference, which is a yearly conference that SWE holds in various locations, and there's like a giant career fair at the conference, and a lot of companies attend. So I met a project manager from Northrop Grumman at the conference last year who was looking for interns, and he looked at my resume, and we just kind of hit it off. So that's how I ended up working there. And they don't usually recruit at Columbia, so those sorts of conferences or outside career fairs could be a good way to get exposure to other companies.
So it looks like for all the corporate positions at least, except for Julia, everyone got it through some kind of a network kind of thing. Yeah, you'd say like an in-person thing is definitely a better way than these like black hole applications.
I can also say that this year I'm applying to full-time positions, and I've got a couple of good leads, and literally every single one of those leads came from a personal connection, or because I did a project and somebody involved in that project had some kind of connection at the time. So keep that in mind. I think that's a better way to go, even though that's not how I got my internship.
Nice. and that's a great segue to our next question. And I'm not going to go down the line for this one, but how did you specifically like prepare for your application process? In addition to, you can talk about your networking a little bit because that seems to be a pretty significant aspect of it. But I know for CS internships, like there are people carrying on those big green textbooks studying specific questions. But for your specific applications, how did you prepare, or if at all did you prepare? Yeah. Anyone, just go for it.
Defense companies actually tend to have behavioral questions. So like mine was a mixture of behavioral and technical. The technical ones were super easy, like what is this circuit, or like go through this VHDL program really generically or whatever. But most of them are behavioral questions. So just know how to sell yourself, and then make sure you come across as like a team player who's really good at communicating or whatever.
I can also answer that question. So I'll talk about how I prepared in general, like not just for JPL, because I did like apply like crazy to all these internships. And basically, for me, I guess my advice is, well, first of all, it's not enough to be a good student. You really need to have a lot of extracurricular projects, or like whether it's research or it's like FSAE or CSI or what have you. Like if you have like hands-on projects that you're doing outside, that's really pretty impressive to employers. Rather than just being like, oh, I have like good grades. Yeah, sure, okay, that's cool. But like, what's your hands-on experience? Because like when you're in your internship, you're not going to be like studying for midterms and like taking tests. You're going to be doing hands-on work, and they want to know that you have experience in that, and you have experience, like Julia said, in a team, being a good team player, not only being a good leader, but also a good follower, so if the more experiences you have, the more you can talk about during your interviews, because during your interviews, even if it's like behavioral, they're gonna dig deep into like what you did outside of your classes, or like what you did during your internship, and you need to have all these on your resume, and you really need to know the ins and outs of each detail. So it's not one thing I really learned through interviewing is that you shouldn't say we did this, or we accomplished this. It's really about what you did. So they want to know like what your role in the team was, not like what the whole team did. It's about you, right? So yeah, you want to make clear statements about how you improved your project, like what kind of accomplishments you made, what kind of leadership initiatives you took, and whatnot. But either way, the moral of the story is have a lot of good internship or engineering experiences outside of the class, and be able to talk about each detail of them. And like for companies like SpaceX, who I interviewed a couple times for and failed miserably, their interview process is extremely rigorous, and they'll like ask you things like, oh, like what was the value you got like on this one little measurement that you took? And then you'll be like, oh, I don't remember that. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Anyway, yeah, like so SpaceX is kind of the extreme example, but either way, like it's all the same. Like you need to know like. They want to know like what you're doing, why you're doing it, what your motivations were, and like what you accomplished, I guess. So.
I think it's also really important for you to, Leon was talking a lot about focus, highlight what you did, and that is incredibly good advice. But you also need to spend time researching these companies. I think it's better to take a few applications and really spend a lot of good time on them, especially if you think that you have a shot at them. And really research these companies and take the experience that you've had and say how what you did applies to what they need. And really look at their needs and highlight the experiences that you think will fit there. That's the best.
And going back to the extracurricular stuff that Leon talked about, it also sounds like those kind of projects and those kind of clubs can actually get you the internship in terms of the Society of Home Engineers, what is it, the conference that you went to?
Yeah.
Was that as a part of like an extra as a club that you were for? Like,
yeah, so that was part of SWE. So
right.
Society of Women Engineers SWE is a student group on campus. So every year we send a couple of people to the conference. And Julie and I just went a few days ago to this year's, and it was super fun. But so involvement in those kinds of organizations can give you access to conferences like that, but also to alumni networks. Because alumni of engineering groups like that end up working at a whole bunch of different companies, and they're usually really receptive to either coming back for formal like alumni dinners. I know SWE has alumni events, but also usually if you reach out to someone who is in that group, while they were at Columbia. That could be a good way to make contacts.
And speaking of alumni, Nolan, you got your internship from the alumni that interned there last year, right?
Yeah, Tomash kind of set that one up. I would never even would have heard of Final Frontier Design without him, so very fortunate for that. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So networking and extracurriculars, in addition to having a good GPA. Now, how important is that? I feel like that's a very common question. It's like, how important is your GPA in applying for these things?
I'd say it's important up to a point because a lot of these companies have GPA cutoffs. They're usually around 3.0 is the minimum usually, and then they'd like to have GPAs that are higher than 3.5. But as long as you're in the clear, above 3.0, I guess, it really doesn't matter as much because, like I said, they don't being a good student is not enough. You need to have good engineering experiences, and if you're part of those kind of experiences right now, that's great. And if you're not, it's not too late. You should really join.
If you're trying to apply to research positions, though, keep in mind that academic sectors rather than private sectors do put more of an emphasis on GPA. I think that's one of the things that helped me get the internship that I got. Even though I mean CSI, I'm going to also plug CSI. I'm not involved in it this year, but last year I was heavily involved, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing well in my job search this year and why I did well last year. So strong plug for that. I second that.
So high enough GPAs to get past the computer culture, but otherwise, it's pretty okay. All right, cool, great. All right, so next question. So it says, what motivated you to apply to your particular position, and how has your experience changed your career aspirations? I'm personally more interested in how that internship experience changed you from going in and coming out, whether you decided, hey, this is a field I want to go into, or maybe you know more about the field. How did the internship change you? Pretty much. Yeah, just anyone can jump in.
I realized I didn't want to do research.
Was it mostly technical things that you got, or did you make any major career changes, any major switch your major or something like that? I don't know.
I didn't switch my major, but I was kind of going into that summer as I didn't know if I wanted to do mechanical engineering or computer science, and the internship I had was primarily mechanical. So I think I came out of that definitely cemented in that major choice, and then I also came out cemented that I knew that I wanted to do something in the space industry, because working with spacesuits for a summer will definitely convince anybody, it doesn't matter who you are, that you want to do something in the space industry.
Actually, can I hear more from Elon? Because I think his experience is a little more unique because his was so much more research focused, and if you could talk about what research is like in light and that'd be really
So
helpful.
I actually have always known that I didn't want to do research. This kind of affirmed it. I've always wanted to do entrepreneurship, and I think business is one of my stronger suits. But I do have a lot of research experience, my previous school and from this. And I don't think that I think it more confirmed my need to go into startups in the private sector. But also, I was going to say something else, but I kind of forgot what I was going to say. No, but yeah, I think that if you are into getting a PhD, you should definitely go for it. I think that I always kind of knew that I didn't want to, and this kind of just pushed me a little bit farther that I didn't want to. But, I know what I was going to say. I think that research is absolutely applicable if you want to go into the private sector. I think that I did this specifically because of that, because I wanted to hone my technical skill set and ability to prototype rapidly and ability to work through problems, and that definitely gave this to me. But I don't want to do it, so that's just my evolution.
What about in terms of aerospace in general? Because Columbia does not have an aerospace program, right? Most of us are EE majors, Nike majors. We don't other schools might have an aerospace major, so it's clear that we want to go into this field. But for us, we have to make a more conscious decision that even though we're a Nike major, an EE major, or CS major, whatever, we're specifically want to go into this aerospace field. So obviously all this applied because we want to go into aerospace engineering, but did this experience kind of cement that kind of specialization in your field?
That's something that was attractive about working at Oregon that I think probably applies to a lot of aerospace companies is that there's a huge breadth of the projects you could be given. just because you're kind of at the integration stage. So with Boeing, like you could be working on a submarine, and then like a couple years later, the same year, be working on a satellite. And that's just if you go somewhere like Silicon Labs, your projects are going to be narrower, I think. Like there's less lateral movement available to you. So it was a really cool place to intern for sure, and I think it'd be a really cool place to have a career.
Okay, great. I'm out of questions. Well, I have one more question. I'll ask this last question, and then we'll open it for Q&A with the audience, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions also. But what is one thing you wish you knew before you started your internship? Like, if you had any advice, tell them where they start applying, where the process of applying. Is there any like one thing that stood out that you wish you knew before you started your internship?
Apply early.
Oh, my job had to do with abacus, FEA, so I would look up the skills that you would need first and try to do a little bit of pre-work with those.
And apply early. Like apply now.
Yeah.
I waited for 3 months for my interview, right? Like, because I put in my resume in November. So.
Yeah, it's actually too late for going right now, right? Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to give that impression. I don't know, but yeah, the EHI is not at every university, and it's at this one. So really look out for it. And something specific I can add to that is if you know you're going into aerospace, like ask about whether you're going to need to get a security clearance, because a lot of these companies are big and slow when they have secrets. So I know people who spend all summer waiting for security clearances, and you should just make sure if it's like your first internship and you know you're coming back, maybe it's worth that investment for you. But it's a question that I think a lot of people wish they asked.
Usually you have to be a U.S. citizen for security.
Something that I wish I knew when I was applying was how important location would be. Because I know when you're going through the applications, some of them will just sort of list random locations, and you're like, oh, whatever, it's just a summer. But this summer I ended up being in LA, which is actually a really great place to be if you're interested in aerospace, because there are a lot of aerospace companies that are there. So it was really fun for me not only to be working on cool stuff, but also to just be in an environment where there were a lot of people interested in aerospace, and I became friends with a lot of the interns that were working at other nearby aerospace companies. So don't dismiss the importance of location. And I also know people who worked at really cool companies, but sort of worked in random locations just because they wanted the name of the company, and I don't think all of them had super awesome summers. So definitely don't just be whatever about where you end up.
Right, because it's an opportunity not just to work, but also to network with the city.
Yeah, to network and make connections with teams that you might want to come back and work with, full time, and then you end up living in that place, So.
Right. Yeah. Great tip. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm out of questions, so I'll open up for Q&A. Anybody have questions? Yeah.
I have a specific question for Elon. You said in passing that your previous school, were you a 3-2 student? Okay. So I am new 3-2. Don't have a GPA at Columbia yet. So would it be good to still apply right now everywhere, even though I don't have a Columbia GPA, or should I wait until after the semester's over to then try and go to the places I want when I actually have a Columbia GPA? Does it look really weird to employers?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I applied to stuff earlier on, but it ended up being my second semester stuff that got me, what I got, and,
Wait, just real quick, I'm going to interject. Thank you for coming.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
that's
have to
fine,
write it down, but thank you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that I looked at Columbia as kind of a new start, and I would really highly recommend, despite GPA not being as important, looking at it as a fresh start. And don't let it limit you. Still apply to it early on, especially for the big companies, and especially if you like your GPA from your old school.
Right.
But definitely it helps you if you show a positive step coming to Columbia.
I know a lot of 3-2s, they just put their their previous school GPA, and that works perfectly.
Right, yeah, I just don't want to it's going to look weird.
I mean, do that, definitely. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
My question is for Leon. Is that how you say your name?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to say it incorrectly. But what specific JPL program were you a part of? Were you part of the summer internship, the 10-week, or?
Okay, so there's multiple, like I said, there's, you contact the mentor, and if you like them, they'll like try to find funding for you, funding to hire you, right? And there's multiple funding programs that JPL has to kind of hire interns. One of them, the most popular, I believe, is SURF. There's also
There's about 6. There's SURF, SFP, SIP, something scholars.
yeah. So anyway, there's a lot, and they all like kind of have their subtle differences. The one I was in is JVSRP, which is JPL Visiting Student Research Program, and that's actually for students who are bringing their own funding. So I actually went through Columbia, Columbia's ESC, or no, sorry, not ESC. Columbia's CCE, that's right, I'm sorry. CCE, Center for Career Education, they have an engineering summer funding program, and they will fund you, they're like, Columbia's rich, like they got a lot of money, so you gotta like take advantage of that. So, I mean, you're here, I'm sure some of you are paying a lot of money, so, you know, you gotta, there has to be some give and take, right? So yeah, anyway, Columbia has a lot of money, and like, you should do your research, and like, you know, you can get like all these really cool internships that you might not have gotten because they don't want to like fund you or whatever. But like, I specifically went through that program and I got like a lot of money from Columbia, and I was like, here, I'm gonna bring my own funding. And so from the mentor's perspective, he's like, this guy, like, so like, there's no like doubt, like unless you're really terrible, like he's not gonna reject you if you're bringing your own money, if that makes sense. So I really recommend them if you're like dead set on like interning at some place, but like maybe you know, they don't want to fund you. And I would really recommend going through that process.
So yeah, he went through CCE, which is Columbia's program, and then reached out to JPL through their JVSRP program to apply. Just to ask stuff, because I was at JPL last year also. I went through SURF or SFP, which is Caltech's program, which is a lot more competitive because you're getting JPL or Caltech specific funding. That one is the one that Leon was talking about earlier with their application process, where they just have a list of mentors in the project, and you just email one of them and say, hey, I'm interested in your project. But that one, that one doesn't involve Columbia. That's just going directly to JPL. And if I understand correctly, of all the programs, SURF and SFP is the most well organized. You also get Caltech housing, but you didn't get public housing, right? Yeah. So there's subtle differences. Research all the different.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So I'm not sure where Million yours was in Brooklyn, but as far as location, are companies willing to like pay for housing, or is that just supposed to come out of your own pocket? I'm not sure how that sort of thing works.
For corporations, usually they'll pay for housing and give them a housing stipend.
Mine was a startup, so I did not get housing covered.
I worked for a big national lab. They usually have a lot of money, and for my specific program, they paid for us to travel. They basically factored our travel and our housing costs kind of into the payment that we got. But housing is up to us.
This is actually also another useful part of the engineering, like engineering internship grant. It's called CEIS, so I encourage you to look that up. Although the application is like really late, so I mean it's kind of like a last resort option, to be honest. Like I had a few internships like that I could have chose, but I really wanted to work for my specific mentor. They didn't have funding, so that's why like I went with that. But either way, if you get an internship and they don't cover like some things that you would like to get covered, that fund can like cover whatever you request, and as long as your proposal or like your application is good, like they can cover like whatever you like I said, whatever you request, like travel, housing, food, whatnot.
Yeah, also make sure you research the cost of living in the area that you're going to be going to. Like I was in the Bay Area, and that's super expensive. So even with my housing stipend, it was pretty hard to find a place that could cover it.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
In terms of like technical questions for an interview, stuff like that, like how rigorous, like in your experience, have they been really? Like, do you have any examples? I know you said SpaceX is super weird in that aspect, but
Yeah, I mean, SpaceX is like I said, they're the extreme. Like they'll ask you like really tricky questions, like
I actually have an interview with them coming up, so
yeah,
yeah.
this might help you, but rocking a boat, look that up. SpaceX rocket, but I failed that question and I'm like so pissed at myself. By the way, yeah, so it really ranges. Like you have to like do the research behind the company because like some of them. Oh, and if you go on Glassdoor, a lot of times like they'll have like reviews. Like Glassdoor is like kind of like a I don't know how to describe it, but basically like employees and like people can just like upload stuff or can post like stuff about the internship or interview process, like what the company's like and all that. But yeah, it's very helpful to look through Glassdoor, but it varies between company and company. Like in my experience, SpaceX is like the hardest interviews, along with like Blue Origin. They have kind of similar rigor. And then NASA is actually a little bit more chill, in my experience. It's a little more behavioral. And once you get to like big corporations like Boeing, it's like pretty much purely behavioral.
Yeah, and the thinking that I think is behind that is that like big corporations see you as an investment, so they don't really care if you come in with too much technical experience because they're so big that they're just going to throw a bunch of people at you and they'll shape you into this awesome engineer. Whereas a startup or something that's on a smaller end, they want someone who is very technically capable.
What about government labs? How hard was the technical for?
There was no interview process.
Wow.
I mean, for my program specifically, they look at you, they look at your resume a lot, and they see the research experience and your GPA. They want to see that you excelled academically. But yeah, I don't have a lot to answer for that.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Yeah.
And what are programs that would be what are programs that international students basically go for?
Sorry, what was that one?
What are programs
International.
Oh, international.
This is like kind of the wrong question of this aerospace.
Well, that's not
Beyond.
true. You can apply to some limited positions. I can't attest for sure because there's also a lot of stuff under wraps at Los Alamos. But there are visiting people there. I know I saw people that are visiting from other countries, and they have their own background. But don't take my word for it if it doesn't work out.
I actually can speak to that also. Like in my lab for JPL, like there are quite a few people with blue badges, which means that it's a foreign national. Because they have different color badges for like U.S. citizen, foreign national.
Yeah, for Los Alamos it was red.
Yeah. So like I think it's still possible. It's probably just gonna have to do a lot of hoops. But I don't. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, but I'll also just add that there's a lot of tech companies, for example Amazon, which are starting to move into some aerospace intern positions, like with Prime Air or like a drone delivery. They have a drone delivery internship now, and there's also like nonprofits like I think Zip Line is one of them, which is basically like a drone. It's not a nonprofit; it's a startup. It's a drone startup that drops medical supplies over countries that need it. So there's a lot of aerospace non-governmental related ones which are more flexible. So yeah, my question is, where do you guys want to go in the long term with aerospace? Like, do you guys want to be astronauts or?
That's definitely not ruling out.
Let's go down the line. I'm gonna force you guys to.
Who's starting?
You start.
Well, it's funny you were mentioning Blue Origin because just today I found out I got a preliminary interview with them and it kind of sucks because they have a hard internship process, but I'm super excited. I want to do startups. I want to end up going to business school and apply that to aerospace in particular. But I think that when it comes to business school, if you're interested in that kind of thing, bigger companies are the way to go because they usually pay for it. Like Pratt & Whitney will pay for it. They have a really good program. Yeah, but I'm definitely interested in the possibility of being an astronaut, maybe for Blue Origin, because maybe we're shifting towards that kind of new landscape, but yeah.
I am looking to go to grad school right now and then go back to industrial research. Boeing is really good if you want to get your master's. They have a program to pay for that. And then you work for them for 2 years afterwards. That's the trade-off. Yeah, and I also wanted to say, I don't know why I didn't think the private sector drone stuff, because that's really cool. Like that came up at Boeing conferences. They're like, our competition is coming from Facebook now. What are we gonna do when Facebook is selling drones? So that's like a big open.
There's also Google Blue.
Yeah, but it's very different. I was looking for jobs there that really advertise jobs. I couldn't find their website. Or, well, they do advertise jobs. I couldn't find their website. That's the thing.
It's probably just one of those X teams that get cut into your.
It's actually, it's under alphabet, yeah. For me, astronaut, shooting for astronaut. If I don't make it there, probably goal is to start my own space company. Somewhere in the shooting for the stars, though.
Literally. Maybe astronaut, but I have to fix my eyes first. I'm in the middle of applying for doctoral degrees, so going to grad school, can stay in school for a long time. Yeah, and then hopefully spin off my research into a space company or something.
Are you getting your PhD in aerospace or mechanical?
It's like, it depends on the school, the way
Fair enough,
because
right.
I'm doing like normal mechanics.
Oh, right.
Interdisciplinary.
Right. Are there like space mechatronics specific programs out there in some schools? MIT. Okay.
Yeah. Also, if you're trying to do business school, I shouldn't give this away because it's like, I want to do this and you guys are competition. But MIT has a really good program where they do a dual degree, business and aerospace, and they're the best at both in the world. So you should probably do that if you're interested.
Or don't do that so he doesn't get any college.
Yeah. I'm trying.
Yeah.
So astronaut question for sure. So I mean, the one thing I've heard from like all of the astronauts I met is like you shouldn't like specifically set your mind competitive. It's just like be the best at the thing you love, and then like that skill set hopefully will make you a great candidate to be an astronaut. But like your goal from the start shouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna be an astronaut. It should be like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing that's really great, and I'm gonna be the best at it, and that's gonna make me a good astronaut.
So what do you want to do then?
It's a good question. Very good question. Ask me in like a couple of years and maybe I'll figure it out. But I don't know. I have too many interests.
You graduated in 2 years.
I know.
Come on.
I mean, my plan is also actually for grad school because I don't want to be a real adult, and I just want to be in school all the time. But yeah, like go to grad school, learn like some cool shit, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Like, I think JPL definitely is one of my top career options.
Would you go back to JPL after your master's?
Absolutely, yeah. JPL is a top career.
Really, I think people wear glasses in space.
Yeah, no, but I have like an eye condition, so that's separate.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there like any specific skill sets for aero internships, or like does it totally depend on where you are? Like vastly varies.
I
I mean, aerospace is such a massive field, and it takes from so many different career fields that, just focus on the thing that you like, and it's probably going to apply to aerospace.
Yeah, like for example, like Rihanna and I both were at JPL last year, but we were on 2 completely different projects. Like I was doing pure CS and he was doing like pure mechanical. Yeah, mechanical.
Specifically speaking for my team, since I'm on this, right? Does it still vary whether like many?
Yeah, I mean, Mechi's such a
Yeah, that's
broad
also-
field. There's like mechatronics, there's like you could be doing robotics or whatnot. Like it's too varied. Like,
What are you interested in?
Yeah, exactly.
How can, I mean, maybe we can answer this better if you tell us what some of the possible routes are that you're focusing on.
Probably design, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Let's do consultation.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. You should also be charging for this. Yeah.
How do you decide whether or not you want to go to grad school, or is that a decision process for you?
I actually solidified my choice after going to Lockheed. I was sort of on the fence, but I don't know, what I noticed is that a lot of the positions that I wanted to be, which is more research and development type things, required, or at least was sort of tacitly implied that you had to have graduate education to hold those positions.
Sarah, you mentioned that Boeing has a grad program. Are you like planning on?
I'm not participating in that. I'm applying to PhD programs, but if you work for Boeing, you'll find out about. I forgot what this acronym was, but they do have a plan to give you your master's degree.
It's called Learn Together. Sorry to
Okay,
interrupt.
that sounds right.
So you can do both.
Yeah, Lockheed has one too. A lot of big companies will have one.
Yeah, most of them.
Cool. Yeah.
How did your internship at an aerospace company compare to previous internships you've had, if you've had any, and if they weren't in aerospace, how they compared?
So my other internship before this one at Lockheed was at NASA, and it was widely different. The pay was a lot better, just because I was a private industry now. Location-wise, I think the Lockheed one was good for me, just because I was in Silicon Valley, so I was able to network a lot more. And it does help with grad school labs if you're in the area and you're like working with people. But otherwise, not too much has changed. Like, they're still very big. I mean, Lockheed was a government contractor and NASA is the government, so they feel the same. They're still both in aerospace. I like space, so I like the job.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd say the previous internships that I had were just primarily research. And then when you actually work in a company that has like a customer, it just feels a lot different. Basically, your everything that you do is just focused towards one product, and like there's like real considerations and real deadlines. Whereas in research, it can be a little bit like slower at times, and you know the focus can be a little bit different. So I'd say for me personally, it was a lot more exciting.
Elon, can you add on in terms of like, did you feel like, because you mentioned that this internship was kind of convinced you to go towards like startup incorporation. Was that one of the reasons? Is that like research is too loose, or is it too slow for?
No, I mean, I think that one of the things about research and big corporations too is that you're focusing on very specific things because they need you to make this one little thing that's going to fit into their larger assemblies work very well. I think that to answer your question, my previous experiences were, other than, I had a lot of experiences in during the year stuff. Like last year I worked with Leon on a mission for CSI. That was very influential. But before that, one of my summer gigs was a small research team focusing on solar air heaters. And I think that it was at the school that I was at before Dickinson College, and that was great. And it was cool to be able to step up, or I don't want to say step up, I should say, to go to a bigger place and see how all these things fit together and have all these resources that a big national lab can provide. Because a big national lab, I'm going to advertise Los Alamos here for a little bit, because it's really awesome to go there because they have all these different speakers. It's like college. They have all these different speakers come, and you can just get like a free pass if you're not super busy to go and see these really cool people come. Like Naveen Jain, the founder of Moon Express, he came, and there are some big names that come and see that place. So that was kind of cool.
We made like a similar thing in terms of speakers.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was like a lot of speakers and a lot of very interesting people. So like what I learned is like the networking doesn't stop when you like get the job. So it continues like at your job. You should be talking to everyone you can. Like the people you're interested in. And, I feel like I started a little too late, but like I did get some, so I'm really happy about that. So I hope you guys can learn from that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Specifically for a CS major, what kind of skills do you need for an aerospace internship? Or what are companies looking for?
Sorry, say that once
For
more.
a CS major, what are companies looking for in aerospace?
For CS major.
Avionics is huge for most companies that do aerospace. So if you're interested in that, maybe learn a little bit more about it. But I mean, CS is so applicable to so many things you're not going to have a tough time finding things that are applicable.
Yeah, avionics, if you're into the embedded stuff, flight software also. And then if you're into like the AI aspect, there's a lot of machine learning. They're trying to apply a lot of the machine learning stuff too. So really anything in CS.
Controls is big too.
Yeah.
Like learn about controls.
Whatever you're interested in, I'm sure there's a job for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was at a machine learning group at JPL for the summer, and that was, it's not really aerospace. It's much more like planetary data analysis. So we were taking like photos from Mars and Saturn and whatnot, and processing them with like machine learning algorithms. So yeah, it's like very wide ranging. We're at JPL. If you look through the announcements of opportunity, I remember when I was applying, I was looking for CS related positions, and a lot of them, like, you know, there were some like drone swarm control systems. There was like like microcontroller stuff. A lot of I had a friend that was working on like onboard, because they're working on Mars 2020 right now. So a lot of people were doing like control systems for Mars 2020. I had a friend that was working on the VR systems. JPL is doing a lot of VR research and augmented reality research with like the HoloLens and the Vive for data visualization and etc. So yeah, like pretty much everything. Anything that you want to do, you can probably find some related project in either like Boeing or JPL or whatever organization. Yeah. Yeah, James.
What undergraduate programs are there for aerospace? I know Elon mentioned the one at MIT. Are there any other notable ones?
Do your own research.
I mean, there's a lot, and schools specialize in different things. And MIT is a big name, but really all the big engineering schools have them. Like Michigan has them. University of Maryland has a great space systems lab if you're into that. So really, it's just, I don't know.
Virginia schools in Georgia, like UVA is pretty big in aerospace. So I don't know about the grad school specifically.
And if you guys study aerospace, if you had the option to, or do you actually like being able to focus on a different area so you can do, stay more flexible and have a broader set of skills?
I'm looking into materials research programs because that's what I've been working on at Columbia. But I think a lot of, like what we were talking about with CS, everything's applicable. Like my team at Boeing was working really closely with the University of San Diego, like specifically on mimics, on like little integrated circuits they used in their antennas. Like anything, because like I was talking about earlier, you're at the integration stage in aerospace, I really think anything you do could be applied somewhere. Almost.
Yep. We're nearing in on our end time, so any last minute questions? No? Any closing remarks? Anything you guys want to get out that you wanted to say but haven't been able to say?
One thing I thought of when Elon was talking, and actually when Leon was talking as well, about like the speakers that come. Although I worked at kind of like a startup, I also kind of had an opportunity to meet a lot of people because, Final Frontier Design, while I was there, was actually going through like funding rounds and meeting a lot of venture capital investors, and I got to, I just asked Ted, who's the founder, like kind of sit in on all these meetings, and it was a really good experience to kind of, be primarily involved in the mechanical side, but then also kind of get to sit in on these business meetings.
You sat in on meetings with venture capital?
I did.
Wow.
That's good.
That's
He's offered to take notes, and then
wow.
you get to sit. So.
That's great.
Yeah, be proactive.
And email people. If you go through the black hole method, look them up on LinkedIn. Look up whatever hiring manager might be there. For bigger companies, it's probably, you're not going to find a name. But try to find a name, try to find an email, try to email them. It really differentiates you.
To increase your chances of success through the black hole method, make sure you have someone review your resume, because what they'll do is they'll put filters on those resumes, right? So they're looking for keywords, like for me, it would be like signal processing or integrated circuit design. So make sure you put keywords in your resume, buzzwords, so that way it'll pass through the filters, and then your resume will be handed over to a recruiter.
It's pretty much like search engine optimization for your resume, right? Yeah. Does everybody know what we're talking about when we say the black hole method?
I love how that's what we're calling it.
I love it. It makes sense.
Because
You know,
it's true.
It's true, though.
Your resume just goes into the black hole.
10,000 go in, 1 come out, right?
Yes.
Spits out some random things once in a while. Yeah, but everyone knows what we're talking about. Okay. All right. So yeah, we're 9:30. That was our specific time. So thank you everyone for coming.